people who are like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Taping your mouth shut? You guys are crazy. This is a scam. And I'm sure everybody out there is thinking, why the hell would you call it that? Like, really? Hostage tape? People feel held hostage by poor sleep and they don't know what to do. So we took this term hostage tape and created this brand around it. It gets your attention. And in this day and age, attention is the currency. I went in initially thinking, we could do 100 million. This could be a $100 million brand. I went, no. This is a $1 billion brand.
Before we dive in, I want to extend a warm invitation to join our thriving Foundr community. It's the perfect place to discover more insightful interviews aimed at helping you build, grow, and scale your business. So don't forget to hit subscribe. Your support means the absolute world to us. Thank you so much for subscribing. Let's get stuck into today's discussion.
Hear the stories, learn the proven methods, and accelerate your growth and future through entrepreneurship. Welcome to the Foundr Podcast with Nathan Chan.
All right, well, let's just kick things off. Let's go straight for it. Like, why hostage tape?
So hostage tape is the culmination of a lifelong journey, honestly. So you might look at it and you might look at the success that it's really an iceberg, right? There's just all of this stuff underneath the water that has come from a lifetime of experience. So the story that I like to tell about it is, so 6 years ago, I had it all. 2 years later, I lost everything, and mouth taping changed my life. So I actually was an entrepreneur before this as well, serial entrepreneur, and I had a software company. So as you can see behind me, I was an athlete my whole life. My first love was American football. And so I started this software business that dealt with sports video analytics. And as my journey went through with that, my wife and I went through a divorce. And I went through that typical entrepreneur journey of you focus too much on your business, you get burnt out, you get out of shape, you neglect your family, you neglect everything else just because you're so focused on this one thing. And then I was also sleeping like shit. I was just sleeping so bad that I snored like a chainsaw. I'd pushed my wife into the other bedroom for years. And it was through that experience where I'm literally in my aunt's basement, right? So we go through this divorce. And when you go through a divorce, you're selling the house. The finances are a wreck because you got to go through all that, right? And then everything's frozen. So I'm living in my aunt's basement. And I'm like having a rock bottom moment thinking, what do I got to do in this moment? What do I need to do to be a better father, better husband, better partner, better leader, all those things? And so I started looking at my sleep and I said, how do I make my sleep better? How do I, because that was really at a core of what was going on, right? Pushing my wife into the other bedroom for years and just intimacy eroding. And so I went down this rabbit hole of trying to find all these different things. You go into Amazon, you find, pillows, you find mouth guards, you find all these things that don't end up working. And then I stumbled across James Nestor's book, Breath. And if you haven't read this book, you've got to read it. You got to read it. It's a best-selling book where it's a really simple read that he takes all this science and makes it in a really easy read. But he talks about this experiment where they go to Stanford Medical Center and they plug their nose for 10 days. And over those 10 days, they develop sleep apnea. They snored like crazy and had dangerously low levels of blood oxygen. And then after 10 days, they unplugged their nose, they mouth taped. And after one day, everything went away. So for me, like the light bulb went off and I went, wait a minute. I've been an athlete my whole life. My coaches never taught me this. They never taught me the benefits of nose breathing and the dangers of mouth breathing. You mean to tell me it's that simple? So my whole life I've been mouth breathing, and that's really what caused a lot of the issues with just how I felt and just didn't get great sleep and the awful snoring, and I even had terrible issues with my teeth. So that started the mouth tape journey. I went on Amazon and I bought just whatever you could get. You kind of don't know when you're stumbling into mouth taping for the very first time. You don't know what to get. You don't know how to use it. So you just buy what you think is cheap, and you get it. And before you put it on, everybody has the same thought run through their brain. You think, wait a minute, if I put this on, am I going to die? Everybody has the death thought of, like, am I not going to, like, what if my nose plugs up? Am I going to wake up? And I went, no, I'll be fine. Like, my nose was meant to breathe, so I'll just do it. You get it over with. And when I woke up the next day, I felt like my teenage son, right? The amount of energy that I felt, because when you get poor sleep, it stacks. And so I had this just burst of energy that I'd never felt before. And I'm 44 now, but at the time I was in my early 40s. So I couldn't believe just how I felt. And I knew in that moment that, wow, something this simple, this life-changing, I had something. And being an entrepreneur, you're always looking for problems. You're always looking for things that you can get into next. And I was at a phase of my life where I had sold my business and I was in a job. I hated it. So I was trying to figure out what was my next move. And I always thought e-commerce was a move I wanted to get into, because when you're scaling a SaaS company, it's really difficult, because when you scale, you have to scale with people. And scaling with people is a hell of a lot harder than scaling with Facebook ads, if you know what you're doing. So I wanted to get into e-commerce. I'm like, this is it. This is my chance to pivot, start my second company, get into e-commerce, and I can do something that I'm really passionate about that's close to my chest, because everything I've ever started is something that I'm passionate about, something that I resonate with. It's not just something I look at and think, oh, I can make a lot of money with that. No, this is something that's affected me my whole life, right? And it's so simple. And so then that led into this, all right, well, what am I going to call it? And the funny story about hostage tape, why did I call it hostage tape? Because you look at that name, and I'm sure everybody out there is thinking, why the hell would you call it that? It's a bit controversial, isn't it? Like, really? You know? So I was really into Liquid Death at the time. I loved what Mike did with Liquid Death. And I love how he took this brand. He took the biggest commodity in the world that built a brand around it. That was the moat, right? So the story was, when I started a mouth tape, and whenever my kids were over at my house, I would always warn them early on. I would say, hey kids, I'm going to warn you. If you run into the room and you see me, don't freak out. It's going to look like I'm being held hostage. Okay. I'm just wearing mouth tape. Because when you see somebody, they look ridiculous when you have tape on your mouth if you've never seen it before. And you kind of look like you're being held hostage yourself. So lo and behold, I didn't know that that's what I was actually going to call the company months later. But then what I realized was that on the flip side of the coin, we were tapping into this core emotion that people felt. People feel held hostage by poor sleep, and they don't know what to do, right? You feel held hostage by your partner, and you don't know what to do. So we're tapping into this core emotion that people are feeling. And at the end of the day, right, if you can create a brand that people emotionally attach to, and you're solving a problem, now you've caught lightning in a bottle. You've caught a couple of really key things here that are important, that you can find product market fit, and then you can scale that thing to the moon in just the right way. So that was really kind of a long version of where hostage tape came from.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, man. And, from the research and seeing you guys around, seeing your ads, they're crazy. They're awesome. This business has grown super fast. So you started in March 2022. That's when you launched.
That was the first shipment. Like, granted, we started before then. So really, like, there was 6 months before leading up to that where I was spending a ton of time getting the glue right. So the adhesive on the tape, because, one of the biggest questions that people always have about that tape is, well, does it actually stay on, or is it too rough, like duct tape? So there was a back and forth of just trying to find just the right amount of glue. And then we shipped the very first order on March 4th of 2022.
Yeah. And fast forward to now, like, from the research that we've done, Like the business is doing over 40 million a year now, right?
We're trending to get to 40 million a year. Yeah, we're not doing more than that yet, but we will be.
Yeah, and you're going for 9 figures. You think you'll be a 9-figure business next year?
So funny story about that. So when I first launched the brand, my business partner Ben, he's a longtime entrepreneur, just like I am. He's run his own agency, creative agency, and when we came together on the idea, we were like, well, what do we think this could be? And I did that exercise that a lot of people do. You go, well, I think the market's about this big, so I think we could do X. And I went, no. This is my second time around. I know what I'm doing. Don't think small. Go big. So I added a 0 to it. So this is going to be $1 billion brand. So I went in initially thinking, we could do 100 million. This could be a $100 million brand. I went, no. This is $1 billion brand. And when you actually do the math, when you reverse engineer the TAM, in the United States alone, there's 128 million households, right? Over 71% of them mouth breathe at night. That's at least $1 billion market of a percentage of people that I know that I can capture in the US alone.
So did you have many people question you like how you were going to build, a $1 billion brand selling tape? Like, how did that look from like a unique selling proposition perspective in such a saturated market?
Well, let's unpack a couple of things there, because yes, in my own brain, I had to get over that hurdle of thinking, okay, this is a commodity. It's tape at the end of the day. How the hell am I going to start a business, scale it, and convince people that this is worth them paying a premium for? How am I going to do that? And is there actually a business here? And I'll never forget, I got really big into listening to podcasts like yours. And I was listening to My First Million at the time, very early on when Sam and Sean were really growing it. So I loved hearing their ideas on business. And so I got introduced to who Moise Ali was. Moise Ali was the famous founder of Native Deodorant. And he always told this story of, if you go into the aisles of Target and you see a wall of white, okay, there's an opportunity there. And what that said to me is, oh, okay, you might be afraid and think that there's too many competitors, there's too many options in the market, so I don't have a chance. But in actuality, if there's a big enough TAM there for it, then your opportunity is actually standing out. It's creating something that's different, that gets people's attention, that then you create a brand that people can identify with, connect to. That's your moat. That's how you build it. So that's then when I learned from what Mike did with Liquid Death and created this hostage tape brand that I knew was going to stand out and it was going to get people's attention. Because let's be honest, anybody that sees hostage tape come across their feed never forgets it, ever. You don't forget seeing that. That's the beauty of it, right? So then from there it was, mouth taping has certainly come a long ways. And I think we need to credit James Nestor, Andrew Huberman, Dr. Andrew Huberman. And then also I think we deserve some credit there to really inject it into the social atmosphere and amplify it even more. And we're like the first guy through the wall, like the first guy through the wall is always the bloodiest. Like we were that guy. Like the amount of people who thought we were just the comments we got, like the comment moderation that we had to do early on was insane, right? Because look, what a lot of people don't know is when you're paying for ads, you're paying for that. So why am I going to let people troll and put negative comments on my ads I'm paying for? So you have to do a lot of comment moderation. And we did a ton of comment moderation because the amount of people who are like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Taping your mouth shut. You guys are crazy. This is a scam. All that, everything. And it was awful. It was really bad. And especially the name hostage tape. People were like, this is insane that you would call it that. You're marketing directors should be fired. Like all the same stuff that you see, Liquid Death joke about, right, was happening to us. And I tell my team, I had this delusional optimism that I've always had in my whole life of, you knock me down, I'm going to get back up even faster and even bigger than before. And I knew no matter what anybody else thought, that I knew how I felt about it. I knew what it did to me and how it changed my life. Because the best part of that whole story that I told earlier is that my wife and I are back together.
Yeah,
we have 2 kids.
Crazy, man.
And so it completely changed my life, my kids' life, my wife's life, because we're back together and we're scaling this company, right? She's actually my head of HR. She handles all of our payroll, So, and then my son goes to school, and all the kids, he's going to be 15. So all the kids in school are like, oh my God, your dad's the hostage tape guy. Can I get some hostage tape? So he brings hostage tape to school, and then all the kids wear nose strips in the school. And then I get a call from the school saying, okay, can you not have your son bring hostage tape to school? So.
Yeah. So a couple of things I'd love to unpack there. Like, how did you and your wife get back together? Did you say, hey, babe, I found this new invention, like it's hostage tape,
Yeah.
we're good? Like, you got to tell us a bit more about that.
Okay. So when we went through our divorce, it was pretty rough. It was bad in the sense that we didn't talk to each other. We did curbside drop-offs. And so when you do curbside drop-offs and you don't talk, there's a lot of unresolved conflict. There's a lot of unresolved pain. There's a lot of unresolved communication that hasn't ever happened, right? And so one day, so I had the business. I was working on it. We hadn't like officially really launched it, but I had it, and we had started it, and so it was starting to move. And one day on curbside drop-off, she came up to the car out of nowhere. And I'm a big believer in the law of attraction. I'm a big believer in just karma, the universe. I'm a huge manifestation guy. Like, I wake up every morning, and as part of my morning routine, I visualize, right? I've been visualizing this company, our success for the last 2.5 years. Every day, I visualize this feeling of being successful and seeing, $1 billion on a computer screen. I see it every day. And so when she came up to the car, I was like, okay, this is different. I don't know why she's coming up to the car. I don't know why she felt compelled to, but she felt compelled to. We started to have a conversation, and then she invited me into the house. And I'd never been in my wife's house, and I'd never seen my kids' bedroom before, and that was a very emotional moment for me to be able to be invited into this intimate space that was part of my family. And then it started from there. One thing led to another from that moment. And imagine, right, when we split and we divorced, we didn't talk for probably 2.5, 3 years. Did not talk at all. So this was a very crazy, moment to reconnect and start to talk again and actually resolve, whatever conflict that we had, with each other.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks for sharing, man. So we go back to hostage tape. You got your first order, March 2022. What was the MOQ? How fast did you sell out? What was your go-to market? Yep. Was it just, you just ran ads? Or what was it, man?
Yeah. So when we started, I knew, so whenever I start a business, I always start a 2-year P&L. I create a 2-year P&L and I forecast what 2 years out it's going to look like. So I know the playbook. So I knew exactly how I was going to get to, where we are now. I had already mapped it out. Now, granted, it doesn't always go exactly as planned, but at least you have sort of a roadmap that where and sort of how to get there. And I knew the way to get there was with Facebook ads, right? Meta ads. And I'd never run Facebook ads before. So I had to learn how to do it myself. And so I learned, because that was what, as a founder, I wanted to learn everything that moved the needle. the biggest things that moved the needle, and Facebook ads was one of them. And from an MLQ standpoint, like my manufacturer they weren't overly strict with me on having a minimum order. And so I didn't have to order an insane amount. Well, the funny thing about the first order was wrong. I screwed up. So the lesson to be learned here for any young entrepreneur out there is when you're putting your order in for inventory, you gotta like triple check. Like my dad used to always tell me, measure twice, cut once. Measure twice, cut once, right? And I didn't double check the details enough. So when I put the order in, I didn't reiterate, okay, just making sure this, and this of the order. And one of the details was wrong. And so the first batch, 1.0 of hostage tape was actually wrong. So then I had to deal with like trying to sell this first batch of hostage tape that was not really what hostage tape is today. Like what it is today is technically we call it 2.0. It's hostage tape 2.0 behind the scenes, but the 1.0 was the wrong tape. So I had to deal with it, but fortunately I had enough capital because I had sold when I sold my first business, I had equity, and all that. So I was able to sell enough equity when I left because I vested the equity out. And it's the same story that every founder has, right? You sell your company, you hope you can do something amazing, and then you realize they didn't actually want you. They just wanted what you built. And then you exit stage left after 2 years, right? So I exited, and then I was able to cash enough out of some equity that because they raised a secondary, so I was able to cash some of that out. And I had enough capital that I made the mistake, like I could still buy more, and we had enough capital to do it. So it wasn't a huge deal, but it was just like, I can't believe I made that mistake. All right, let's learn from this, make sure it doesn't happen again. So then it was a matter of just, all right, let's scale this with Facebook ads, because I know I can put, $1 in and I can get $2, $3, $4 out, right? And fortunately or unfortunately, depending upon how you look at it, this was after iOS 14. So I never knew what it was like to do ads back in the heyday where you literally put $1 in and you get $6 out, and you didn't have to be very good at Facebook ads. But now you had to be, a pro athlete at Facebook ads, right? And know what you're doing in order to get something out of it. And so for the first 6 months, our ROAS was barely a 1.
Really?
It was bad. Yeah. And my co-founder, Ben, was like, the whole time he's like, are we sure this is working? And I'm like, you got to just have faith, right? I had that delusional optimism, and I said, at the end of the day, this is a CAC to LTV play. Now, I wouldn't recommend for most people that you go into a business playing a CAC to LTV game, because you have to have enough cash flow coming in to be able to dump it back into the business. And fortunately, I had enough capital to use that it didn't matter for me. I had enough runway, but I had enough runway to figure out how to be more profitable, how to increase my AOV in the first order to get more cash coming in. But yeah, man, like we struggled to find the right type of ads early on. Like, believe it or not, I couldn't get video to work.
Really?
I couldn't get any videos to work. And I think it came down to, early on, you don't have a lot of video of like real people using your product other than you.
Yeah.
I had video of me, but so I just couldn't get anything that maybe resonated or was authentic enough to the audience. And plus, you're early on in your pixel. So your pixel's not very seasoned. It doesn't really know what you're looking for. And you're trying to find who those people are, right? So it wasn't until January of the following year, like that 6-7 months, right? From March to December, it was like a 1 ROAS. And then when we got to January, it blew up because I finally found it, and it was a podcast ad. So I went on a podcast, and we had took clips from this podcast, and it was one of the co-hosts talking about him using mouth tape, and he was using this other tape, and now he uses hostage tape, and why he liked it so much and why the other one wasn't very good. That's when I went, oh, okay. Actual podcast style clips is what really kind of works. So then we went all in on just talking head style videos of value of content, and a lot of the stuff you see now when you go to our Instagram, it's a lot of real live people. Like me or my team will be out at an event and we're just like doing interviews. We're just talking to people.
Hey guys, I really hope you're feeling inspired from today's interview. Now the truth is, all successful e-commerce founders started from zero, with a spark of an idea and a whole lot of determination. But let's be real, building or growing an e-commerce business is no walk in the park. And that's where Foundr Plus comes in, which I'm really excited to share with you. It's a culmination of a decade worth of work at Foundr. So if you're feeling stuck in your e-commerce business, you're lacking confidence to move forward, or you're worried about making costly mistakes or not knowing how to grow your business, Foundr Plus is here to support you on your journey. You get access to a customized learning pathway with proven frameworks from successful e-commerce founders for fast results, incredible programs, a supportive community, weekly live mentorship, exclusive savings on startup tools, and 24/7 real human support. Try Foundr Plus today for just $1 for 7 days so you can accelerate your business goals. Visit foundr.com/start $trial or click the link in the description to claim your trial. All right, now let's jump back in the show. Yeah, it's funny how much of a difference the right creative can make to your business. Like we've seen
all the
this,
difference,
yeah,
man.
Like
on the
we've
world.
seen this at Foundr. Like there's ads where we've spent over $1 million just on that one creative, right?
Yeah.
It's insane. Wow. Okay. Interesting. So things really started to take off only literally 18 months ago. Otherwise, that first 6 months was a grind.
Yeah. I mean, we still did, like, keep in mind, we still did almost $1 million in that, first year. So it's not like we still didn't do really good. It just wasn't profitable. Like our AOV at that point was $20 to $30. It was nothing. And the thing that I look back on now and go, I wish I knew that earlier, was I didn't quite understand the CAC that I needed, that I was going to get in Facebook. So I didn't quite think reverse engineer and go, okay, I should have went to market with a higher AOV product initially to be able to handle that CAC, right? That cost of acquisition. So fortunately, what I did is I pivoted fairly quickly enough to know, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get my AOV increased, and I did it by bundling. And so I would then take, all right, rather than just buying one pack, here, buy two, get one free. Or I would have upsells and cross sells in the funnel. So when you add to cart, then you click checkout, thing pops up, says, hey, you want to add on, 2 more of these for a deal, right? And I would hit them at every phase of it on the cart, in the checkout, extensions, and then on a post-purchase. So I was always hitting people on how to increase it. And then we've gotten the AOV from initially like that $20, and our AOV now is up to like $55, $60.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And that single-handedly, I think, is one of the decisions that saved the company and allowed me to turn it into what it is now, so that we're basically first order profitable and we're getting enough cash back, pretty early to then reinvest and then keep going.
Yeah, totally understand. And I think for people watching this and hearing Alex's journey, like when it comes to ads, sometimes people go, oh, well, I'll just run ads, but it's really just, it's all about the unit economics, right? Like even
you got to know your numbers.
Like you've got an incredible product, right? But if you didn't find a way to increase the AOV and get the creative right, those numbers just won't stack.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you've described hostage tape as lightning in a bottle.
Yep.
What do you feel were the key elements that fed into that?
Yeah. So I think lightning in a bottle, it comes down to a couple of things. One is the right brand. Like, again, we took one of the most controversial words, hostage, just like death, just like liquid death, right? Who would have thunk liquid death would become what it is today? And you see it in Target, of all places. Like in the States, Target is this, store, this retail giant that you just never thought you'd see something with death on it, right? So we took hostage, this term hostage tape, and created this brand around it, and it gets your attention. And in this day and age, attention is the currency, right? That every brand has to have. You have to get people's attention. Otherwise, like, how are you going to sell anything, right? So that, along with, we have a product that is a consumable on a daily basis that is small. It doesn't cost a ton to make. It ships really small. It's a recurring purchase product. You see where I'm going with this? So it literally checks all the boxes of like the dream product that every entrepreneur wants to have, and the only one where it's borderline is the AOV, right? Like, but we've been able to, if you know how to bundle and add things together to increase it, to add value, then you solved it, right? Which we've done. So I think those are the pieces of the puzzle that make this like lightning in a bottle. And you might then also look at the environment, like the fact that this concept of nose breathing and mouth breathing has become more of a topic that people are interested in. And again, you could probably look at, James wrote his book a while ago, and so that doesn't totally match up, but you're seeing the rise of Dr. Andrew Huberman, right? Well, only really recently, and he's been a huge proponent of mouth taping. So you've got a guy like Andrew Huberman talking about mouth taping. So a couple of key people in social, huge people, even Rogan has talked about mouth taping. And so when that happens, and then we come out with this product and we executed it just right, that now we're the biggest brand in the world. We're the most notable brand in the world that everybody knows. And all of that just kind of exploded.
Yeah. And talk to me about anti-marketing.
Yeah, so anti-marketing, I look at like, I always compare it to liquid death, right? What they did, where you might look at a product and say, it's the age-old thing of like, you want to name the product or tell the story of where you want the customer to be, right? So you might have said, why wouldn't you want to call your tape like Life's Tape, or Feel Better Tape, or having a life-changing tape, something where this is where you want them to be. And then you constantly tell the story of and show the customer where you're going to be. But instead, we kind of did the opposite, and we said, no, we're going to call it a hostage tape. Like, don't let bad sleep hold you hostage. So it's kind of the opposite of like, you're naming your product the opposite of where they should be. You're naming it and you're resonating with this emotional thing of kind of where they are rather than where you want them to be. And so it's recognizing that idea of attention, right? Knowing how to get attention, and you're getting attention in the opposite way that maybe is taught or you think you should do. And then that's what we started to do. And then how we're also trying to lean into that is we're trying to be funny. Like, we're getting there. The phases of our content, if you go to our Instagram and look, most of our content's educational, obviously by design, because so much about nasal breathing and mouth taping is still not understood, especially, everybody in the Western world. Like, most people in Eastern culture get it. They've been teaching it for hundreds of years with yoga and just all sorts of practices that in the United States, like, we lost that. And so so much of our content's just educational, talking about why nose breathing is so much better than mouth breathing. But then every now and again, we'll have a piece of content that's kind of off the wall, that's kind of weird, it's kind of funny. And that was always our goal, was to eventually get to a point like Liquid Death does and just be crazy off the wall funny. So some of our videos and ads that we've got coming out here in the fall, because we're going to be going into retail here, are very much along the lines of like what you might see with those brands. Just weird and crazy and just funny and entertaining.
Yeah, no, I think it's really clever what you're doing with the name, the branding, and people want to follow, right? Because of all of these really cool, crazy things that you're doing, even the content, the ads, like it puts that whole package together. And like you said, when it comes to attention, that's how you get attention. So you guys are brilliant storytellers. And I talk about storytelling to you offline, right? Stories, what sticks. Stories is what people remember, and it's easy.
Well, and to that point too, I think the other piece of that I've started to lean into is I've started to tell my story more. So it's taken me a year to really craft the right way to tell that story. So if you've looked at enough of our content, you'll have seen two versions of how I've told the story. Very early on, I told it differently. And then as I've gotten better, and we've all gotten better at telling the story, I've adjusted it and adapted how to tell the story better. And I finally found a great way to tell that story. And so like if you go to our YouTube page, the very title of the video is I was at a conference in front of like 10,000 people. I got a chance to go up on stage in front of 10,000 people and I told my story, and I did it in like 3 minutes. So I had to be really mindful of telling a great story in 3 minutes. And so I got up there and I did it. And I think that story, and you heard bits and pieces of it, it's a very intimate story that you maybe wouldn't expect to hear, but also way more people can relate to that story than you think. And that's something that I think is resonating with people too. Just like, wow, there's actually a real person behind this brand. And look at this like life-changing hero's journey that he went through to actually create this product. And wow, I'm actually going through some of that too. Wow. So
I want to touch a bit more on the Facebook ads piece, because it sounds like that piece of the puzzle has been quite instrumental in the rapid growth of Hostage Tape. And one strategic decision you said you made was you ran Facebook ads in-house yourself. How did you get to that decision? And do you recommend every founder should be doing that?
Yeah. Okay. So this is a topic very near and dear to my heart. So when I launched the brand, I knew that the things that were going to move the needle the most were going to be Facebook ads, right, and inventory. And so those were things I was involved with. I had my hands in them, right? And so what I wasn't going to do was hire an agency to run it, because I'm putting my life into this company. Why am I going to trust some agency that I don't know, that maybe is going to put some 24-year-old kid on here who doesn't care about this as much as I do, right? And isn't able to pivot at 7:00 at Saturday night because, we got to make some changes, because he's not at his desk working like I am. So I just knew that I needed to be able to be agile to understand Facebook every day, because I work 7 days a week. Let's be honest. I'm always looking at my Facebook ads account and what's going on, how it's looking. And the last 2 quarters have been heartbreaking. It's been atrocious. But, so I just knew that. I knew I needed to have my hand on that. And so, in my opinion, I recommend every entrepreneur learn how to do Facebook ads, because it's such a valuable skill to learn. And anybody can learn it. Yes, it's complex. It has its details, but you can learn how to do it. I'll give him a plug. I went to Ben Heath. Ben Heath has got a great YouTube channel. Very simple. I actually learned just by watching Ben Heath's videos. And so he got me started by watching his content and gave me a foundation of just how to get started. And then once I had that foundation, then I just started to play. And then I'd make mistakes and learn, and adjust and learn, mistake, adjust, right? And I was always listening to podcasts, and I was always studying what other people were doing. I was paying attention, started to get on Twitter, started to just kind of pay attention to certain key people there. I started to watch and listen to Charlie Tishner. I love Charlie, and his theories on how he looks at meta and media buying and all that kind of stuff. But I highly recommend it, right? Unless you're completely I can't imagine if you're an entrepreneur in this day and age and you're creating an e-commerce business that you have what it takes to learn how to do Facebook ads. Just do it, right? Because it's such a valuable skill to learn.
Yeah, I agree in the sense that you at least need to understand how it works as well, right? And that's, with us at Foundr, we have an incredible education platform called Foundr Plus, where we have someone, you probably know him, Nick Shack. He's one of our instructors. He spent hundreds of millions of dollars profitably on ads. And,
Shackelford?
Yeah.
Okay.
Shack, yeah.
I've actually never met him, but yes, I totally follow. He's a guy I follow. Totally.
Yeah. So he's one of our instructors on our platform.
He's Breeze, right? The drink.
Yeah. Yep. That's
right.
him. Yeah. And he knows his stuff. So even if you just learn the basics, then you can go and work with an agency and hold them to account. But in an ideal world,
Yes.
you know how to do it yourself.
It does kind of depend on who you are as a founder, because there are people who are like, I just can't do it. It's not in my nature. It's not something I want to do. But yes, you still should understand it, like you're saying, so that you can hold them accountable and you know exactly what they're doing and that they're not literally just taking you out to the woodshed, right? I'm not of that nature. I'm of the nature of, I like to have way more control. I like to control my destiny. And plus I knew how big this was going to be and what we were going to do with it. So I wanted to have my hands on the steering wheel.
So look, dude, we could talk all day. We have to work towards wrapping up. It's always been an hour on the clock, but you've partnered with Joe Rogan. You said you have some crazy stories around the UFC, a bunch of other podcasts. How do you go about approaching these partnerships? Do you have any crazy stories that you want to share around that piece of the puzzle? Yeah.
All right. Let me tell the UFC one. So we're the official sleep partner of UFC. And, to anybody, especially here in the States, you're like, holy crap, that's unbelievable. How the hell did you pull that off? Right? Because it's not cheap. It's expensive. But it's a long play. Right. And it's such a powerful brand that I knew when they came calling, I'm like, okay, well, I have to explore this. So it's around the Super Bowl time. UFC comes to us and says, hey, we're interested in working with you guys with Power Slap. And Power Slap is the second brand of UFC that Dana had started with Frank. And it's crazy where, people sit there and they slap each other in the face and it looks wild, right? Especially when you see it in person. So I'm like, oh, this could be interesting. I never in my mind thought UFC I thought it would just be too much money for us. And it would be like a next year thing, because when you look at Prime and Manscaped and Monster Energy, you're like, all right, we're not there yet, but we will be. So we went out there, went in the UFC headquarters, we sat down, and they said, all right, Alex, we changed our mind. We actually think you'd be perfect for UFC. And they pitched us on being a partner of UFC and Power Slap. And I sat there and I went, holy shit, this actually makes a lot of sense. I get it, because the whole thing I was focused on was you have the ability to use their licensing, right? And so if I can use UFC's licensing in Facebook ads and everything, holy crap, that's hugely valuable. I can actually get a return there. So the story gets juicy so later that night, they invite us to Power Slap. And when you go to Power Slap, it's like the who's who of the internet's there, man. It is unbelievable. All the YouTubers, like the last one we were just at, sketches all over, social right now with that controversy and everything. But everybody's there. So we go there and we're sitting in the stands across eye level from Dana, Lorenzo, Fertitta, Hunter Campbell, and all the main people. And then there's a seat next to Dana, and it's kind of like the VIP of the moment seat where guys come in and they sit down for 5 minutes and leave. So like that night, Tom Brady was there. So Tom Brady sits down next to Dana for 5 minutes, and I'm like blown out of my mind because I'm a huge Tom Brady fan. And, Travis Scott was there and Charles Barkley and just all these people were there. So Tom sits down, he gets up, and they come up and they're like, all right, Alex, you ready to meet Dana? I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to meet Dana. So the event actually ended and they took us into the back room, into this VIP private room where everybody was there. The Nelk boys were there, Dana's there, all the execs are there, like everybody's in this room, right? And we walk in, I walk up, Dana turns around, he's got that big old grin on his face, and he looks at me and he goes, Lorenzo, where's Lorenzo at? Lorenzo. And he goes, Alex, so we're sitting there, right? Lorenzo's sitting next to me. He bumps me and he goes, look, the hostage tape guys are here. Lorenzo walks over and he goes, dude, I just want to say, I love your brand. I've been using hostage tape for the last 6 months. Changed my life. Hunter Campbell walks over, shakes my hand, says the same thing, how loves hostage tape. He's been using it for the last couple months as well. And the Dana's like, oh yeah, man, you totally sent me some hostage tape. I remember that. And I'm standing there going, I'm sitting in this room with all these people and the UFC executive team, and they know who we are. And this was, a year prior where this didn't exist, right? Hostage tape did not exist a year and a half or so earlier. And now I'm standing in front of like some of the biggest guys in the world, and they're telling me how they love hostage tape. And then shortly after that, then we signed the deal, negotiated it, and then became in April, the April of that year became the official sleep aid partner of the UFC.
And has that been like, how much a game changer has that been?
When we signed it and it got announced, everybody comes out of the woodwork. So every single major sports team especially in the US, but even around the world, like the amount of football clubs around the world that have contacted us is crazy. But everybody comes out of the woodwork and says, oh, I saw your partnership with the UFC. Congratulations. And then now everybody wants to partner with you, and they want you to be the official sleep aid partner of their team. And so it's been amazing on just networking. My ability to walk into a room, because everywhere I go, as you stated earlier, what you're seeing is this is who I am. Everywhere I go, I've got a nose strip on. I'm wearing the brand. I'll be in an airport and I'll get stopped and they'll say, oh my God, are you with hostage tape? And I'm like, yeah, I'm actually the founder. Like, oh man, I've been wearing it for the last 5 months and it changed my life. So I get stopped everywhere. But having that UFC brand now means all of these big time organizations and even now athletes, they know who we are. And I can start up a conversation with any of them and I've got an in that door, right? And, it's like, we met with Pat Mahomes' team. Pat Mahomes is the biggest quarterback in the world right now with what he's done. They know who we are, and we had a meeting with them the other week, So like, that's what this affiliation with UFC's done. And yes, the awareness is certainly great too. And it's helped us get our foot in the door in retail, because now retail looks at us and goes, oh, you guys are the real deal because you're partners with the UFC. Okay. All right. Let's talk.
Yeah. Wow. That's a cool story, man. Thank you for sharing. Last question. What are you most excited about next?
Retail. I'm excited to get into, so we're working on getting into Walmart right now. And so Walmart, well, technically we're going to be launching into another retailer before that, a smaller retailer, but our first like major retail launch is going to be with Walmart. So I'm working on that right now. So I'm looking forward to what that's going to do, what that means. Because for us, like that's the next evolution of where we have to go. Because there's never been a mouth tape brand in retail. Never. We will be the first. And so bringing this like brand new category into retail and then having just the brand awareness that we have, I think is just going to be super exciting as to how this plays out. And it's going to be crazy. It's going to be amazing.
Well, dude, I'm so excited for you. Thank you so much for taking the time, sharing your story with our community and all your success thus far. We will wrap there, but that was an incredible interview. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it. I love talking shop. I love talking about this kind of stuff so that other founders, other entrepreneurs can learn. And because I know what it's like being in many of their shoes if you're first getting started out and you're like, man, and you just need to hear somebody like me give you hope, give you inspiration to say, you can do it. Right. One thing my mom taught me was you can do anything you want to do. You just got to be willing to work for it. And lastly, I'll end on, don't let bad sleep hold you hostage.
All right. So if you love this episode, make sure to check out my interview with Alex Hormozi on how he scales companies from zero straight to $2 million a month in less than a year.
People were like, how have you achieved what you achieved? But like, there's 5 years of my life that disappeared. In fact, I lost all the money, which I talk about in the book. I had all the gyms, I did the turnarounds, and then I had $0 5 years later because of mistakes that I made. But the things that I was gaining was not the money, it was the skills, it was the character traits, and the beliefs.